listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
How's it going? You doing good out there? Thanks so much for choosing to listen to my podcast. It sure is great to have you here, and if you're a regular listener to the show, you'll already be familiar with today's guest, as it's a return visit for uber-talented bass player Marco Mendoza. Now, when Marco and I spoke earlier this year, we only scratched the surface on some of the cool stuff he's done throughout his career, so as he's set to release a brand new solo record called New Direction, what better time to check back in and speak about his new music, but also to give me the chance to learn more about his early adventures out in Los Angeles during the 80s and 90s, which is what we do on today's show. Marco is also going to be touring throughout the UK in November, and all dates along with details about how to get hold of the new album New Direction can be found over at marcomendoza.com. Before we dive in, lots of things happening elsewhere. I'm currently out on tour with Grand Theft Audio all over the UK until September the 24th. It's a great lineup with ourselves, CJ Wilder and also Scott Sorry, so it's a bit of a three-band monster of a lineup, so if any dates are near you, please try and make a gig. And whilst I'm away, Chris is manning the Straight to Video 80s video shop. So if you're in the Midlands area near Alfreton, Derbyshire at the weekends, drop by and pay him a visit. We're getting in the Halloween spirit over at the shop, and on Sunday the 16th of October we'll be welcoming legendary artist Graham Humphreys to join us on our Halloween Horror Day. Now, Graham is responsible for some of the most iconic VHS and movie artwork of all time. I'm not lying. From The Evil Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2, Return of the Living Dead and countless others. So it's a real honour to have him in our little shop. For all the details on the event, check out at 80s Video Shop on social media and look out for some more Halloween themed events soon. Alright, let's get into today's chat. Look out for the new album, New Direction, dropping on the 16th of September with live dates later in the year. But right now, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Marco Mendoza.
I'm on the cloud, floating around, looking down. Nothing but pain. I'd like to see a new dawn break, a new direction, where peace and love is the only rule, the only possession.
All right. How are you, Bob?
I'm good, mate. Really good to see you again.
Good to see you too, brother.
You was bang on time last time. We're early this time.
Yes. Trying to work on my punctuality. That's a big word. Punctuality. I love that one right there. I love that bass right there.
That's my go-to jazz. I've had it nearly 20 years now.
I was going to say, it looks like an older one. Just the vibe is so cool.
It's got a few nicks and tells a few stories now, which is...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nothing special about it, but it does the job.
The player makes it special, always.
It's all in the fingers, like Billy Sheehan says.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
What's your go-to bass?
Well, for a few years, all I was playing was my Fernandez 6 fretless, and I was playing it exclusively when I went to LA a few years back. I want to say that's the bass that got me on the radar because, you know, when you play something for a while, it becomes part of you, you know. When you play it exclusively, I wanted to say. So, yeah, I kind of got a lot of work out of it, a lot of sessions, a lot of invitations to play here, to do that. So I would say that I have it with me on the road. I bring it out on the road, and I play it occasionally when I do clinics here and there, you know. But my go-to bass has been, I have a signature bass with ESP, the 4-string, the MM4, which is an amazing bass. If anybody hasn't checked it out, I'm real old school. I went back to one volume, one tone, PJ setup, kept it simple. I wanted to make it available so that it wouldn't be over the top expensive for the new players that would be interested in something. But it's a great go-to bass.
And not intimidating for people either. If it's got all like the bells and whistles and stuff, it's people are put off.
Exactly. And it's very versatile and it looks great. It's got a great look. It's got the hip shot. Maple fingerboard, which is one of my favorite boards. 34 scale, pretty light, which I dig. I don't know about you, but when I put a bass on, the lighter it is, the easier it is to play for me. and without compromising the tone, of course. So great little bass. But right now, when I do my solo, when I'm touring, I play 5 exclusively because I'm playing in different keys. So instead of going bananas, having to transpose and do that, so for me, because I'm singing, I'm fronting the band, it makes my life a little easier and it's more fun. So I'm playing an LTD 5-string. But funny enough, I was in Bucharest 6-7 weeks ago, day off, and I was walking the streets, and I went into this with a friend of mine, with Michael, and I went into this music store, and it became a big event. Let's just say that, whatever. I don't want to get into the details, but it was like, what? I walked in and I ended up walking away with an Ibanez bass that I fell in love with.
You're always on the lookout.
Yeah, especially when I'm on the road. And right now, I don't mind telling you, I've had 3 surgeries on my knees. So if I pick up a bass, regardless of the brand, regardless of the bells and whistles, the first thing I look is the neck, how comfortable it is for a 5-string. The spacing is really nice and tight, not too close, somewhere in the middle. And once I pick it up, if the weight is like on the right side of the spectrum, I go, whoa, okay. Then I plug it in and it's a great little bass, man. So long story short, he ended up with my bass. I ended up with a new bass from the shop and he was a happy camper, I signed it and he probably put it up there on the store or whatever. It was beautiful, man. So I'm playing that, but at home I have a lot of stuff. And I got to say, I did a few shows with Journey last year. So I wanted to get back to that tone. I was playing Fenders there. Amazing Fenders, man. I think for me, I'm at the stage where I want to rediscover things. But for me, the less bells and whistles, the better. Call me an old dog if you want, whatever. I'm just set in my ways, and the simpler, the better. It's the fingers, it's how you perform, what you're doing with the instrument and the amp that ultimately is where it's all at. And when I'm fronting my band, there's a lot of other things to worry about. Got the lyrics, you're fronting the band, you're featuring the guys, you're keeping the time, you're making sure that every show goes on the best possible way. Trying to keep it new, trying to add songs and change the set. It's a lot of work, but I love it, man. And this is part of it too, Bob. This is a big part of it, actually. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming back for part 2. Where are you coming to us from at the moment?
I'm in Spain, Costa Brava.
Very nice. Because we spoke earlier this year, just as you're about to embark on your UK tour. We'd then see you shortly after as part of the supergroup Iconic. But now,
yes.
Just a few months later, you have your own new album set for release next month, New Direction. Things must have been pretty full on since that tour, which we spoke about. When did you get the chance to finish everything off?
Believe it or not, a lot of the work got done during downtime. The pandemic there was a lot of time available and a lot of time to be creative and think about what to do, when to do what. Quite a few things. I did about 3-4 albums that I can think of. One of them is this one. Took forever to complete because we got caught in the middle. We started in September of 19 and we were supposed to finish in February of 20, and we know what happened. So we couldn't get to the studio until the end of June of 21, and then the world shut down again, and we really didn't know, Bob. For a minute, I really didn't think this album's going to see the light of day, to be honest. So now we are a year later. I'm on tour. I'm playing on one of my longest tours ever as a solo artist, and the album's coming out. So I'm like, grateful is the word.
I guess you're kind of gig ready as well for when the album does come out.
Yes, exactly. This is how it worked out. I learned my lesson for my first album and my second because I was tied up doing some amazing projects and touring with some amazing bands and all that. But I didn't give the albums the time that it needed to support it, to get it out there, And now we're actually revisiting the first album, Live for Tomorrow. So we're doing more songs from that album and people are digging it. It's funny. It's so funny. And this is, this album came out 9 years ago. It's been that long. So it's just that circle, man. As long as I keep moving forward and I know that I'm taking every effort to keep moving forward, I'm fine. I'm not one of these guys to sit back too long and wait for things to happen. The work ethic that I have today is because of my father. He taught me how to get things done. Because you want something done, you got to do it. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Take little steps, short-term goals, and then you achieve that eventually.
Are you good with patience?
I've learned to be now, especially now in the business. A lot of people tell me, Marco, how do you do it? I said, because I've learned, and this is part of the 12-step program. I'm sober 34 years. It's one of the benefits. In the 12-step program, we learn acceptance, tolerance, open-mindedness, but the tolerance and acceptance is a big part of being patient. Understanding that you have no control over what happens around you. Things have their own rhythm, and sometimes you can't change it. So you learn how to navigate that. and you sit down and you accept what's going around, and then you take the wheel and then you go in your direction. That's a short answer.
You mentioned it there. I mean, you've been constantly busy as a musician for many decades.
Yes, sir. Thank God.
But I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's only fairly recently that you've shifted the focus to being a songwriter and frontman. And you've said in the past, no regrets, but you would have liked to have done it sooner. Was that a big challenge for you, working with so many huge names and, I guess, massive songwriting talent to finally put your songs in the spotlight? Was that daunting?
It is, and it always has been. But again, my career's put me in the same room with some of the best. So needless to say, stuff rubs off. I've always been fascinated how things work, whether it be music, life, carpentry, mechanics. If I could get the breakdown of why this thing's connected to that and how this functions together to get to that. So the same thing with music. And having been in the same room with a lot of these cats collaborating, whether you get the credit or not, you're part of the whole thing. You learn a lot. But I will say this, at the end of the day, for me, it's got to be a human connection with my partner. The person that I'm working with on new music, somebody that understands me, somebody that knows what my boundaries are, where my shortcomings are, and what my strengths are, and lets me go there and guides me through these parameters, but doesn't stop me. And that's what I found with Soren. Soren was actually my first guitar player in my solo project back in LA. And Soren comes from Copenhagen, from Denmark. He's got his own studio. He's an amazing guitar player, amazing producer. Now he's producing more than ever. Singer, songwriter, engineer, mixer. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely guy and talented. And I've worked with a lot of cats like that I don't get that connection. So him and I get together, and within hours, we have 2-3 songs. So it's one of those things. So it's very important. And then you bring the tools that you've learned along the way. Let's try this, let's try that. But 9 times out of 10, the first instinct is always the correct one. The first bass pass or the second one, maybe, are always the best ones. It's all instinct, right? You don't know the song, you're navigating, and you go places where your mind tells you shouldn't go, but you do it because it's instinct. And you're following the music. I'm not thinking chords, I'm not thinking notes, I'm thinking, where's this going? Listen to the melody, let's support that, And then you go back, of course, the brain turns on, and you go, okay, I shouldn't go there here, I shouldn't go. You start analyzing, and you end up with different results.
Does your bass playing change on your solo stuff compared to what it would do in a band format? Because you're going to be singing and fronting a band.
Actually, that's been a bit of a problem from time to time. Yes, because it's one of these, you know. When we record, we try to record live with a drummer, but sometimes it's just not available. Whenever we can, we love to play live, and I would love to sing and play live. So inevitably what happens, not that they're intricate or hard, but this hand's going that way, and the voice is going that way, and your right hand's going this way. And it's
because songs are building in the studio. You're hearing stuff. You're not thinking about, I've got to play that in a gig.
Exactly. That's one thing that I've learned on this album. I start thinking, wait a minute, I do want to take this live. And the main focus as bass players, we're in a supportive role. We support the melody, we support the song, we lock in with the drummer, we try to create that beautiful bottom that's groovy and it's got pocket and swings and got a little bit of movement when it's allowed and you feel it. So I try to remember that. But the singing, that's what I wanted to say. The singing and the songwriting has been the main focus when I work with Soren. And he's a big fan of songs, of songwriters, whatever you want to call it. We call it pop songs because in my mind, pop songs were the Beatles. That's what I was listening to, and Creedence Clearwater Revival and Grand Funk and Deep Purple and Zeppelin. And that was what I understood as pop because that's what they used to play on the radio, bro. And later on became FM, AM. We won't play this here because it doesn't qualify as that. And now we got to label this kind of music that way. It's like too many labels. But long story short, we're fans of songs and pop songs. And I think you can hear it in this album. And we had so much fun. It was like more simple, keeping it alive with the lyrics and the singing. And the soloing is just incredible. Soren is out of this world. But also I got lucky enough and I brought my guitar player, Tommy Gentry, to come and play. And he's just flying, man. A lot of beautiful things, a lot of beautiful things. I'm excited, first of all, that it's going to come out right there. That's it. That completes the whole picture for me. Second, I'm very proud of it. There's quite a few songs, and I keep hearing from everybody they dig it. So it takes you on a little bit of a ride, the rock thing and the messages. And there's a ballad there that came out of me getting together with Doug Aldrich and Tommy Aldrich. So great memories. I'm really excited that it's coming out.
When we first spoke, we talked a lot about your early days in Mexico. But if it's cool to dive back again, would you mind telling us a little about what led you originally to go out to LA and Hollywood? And when was that exactly?
I hit LA in the early 80s. I was very young and I had a drug problem, an alcohol problem. I could get into the story, long story.
That's probably not a good starting point going into LA.
Yeah, exactly. You're jumping into the hottest spot available. So for some reason, I managed my addictions, my drug use and my alcohol to some degree. And then it got out of hand. Not to drop any names, but I had a producer that I was working with, got me some great auditions. He got me Lionel Richie. If you think about Lionel Richie and the 80s, these were major, major gigs, right? Got me an audition with Cher. So I was in that clique of bass players that, let's check him out, let's check him out.
So you wasn't necessarily going down the hard rock route. Was that because of your playing style?
Yes. And the look, and because for some reason when I got to LA, coming from Mexico, people recognized that. And I was able to get calls for Latin, for funk, for reggae, for pop, the whole thing. So for a minute, I thought I was going to be a bit of a session guy because I was all over the place.
You'd have probably terrified those Sunset Strip bands, though, with your playing.
Well, my name got thrown around a little bit. And I started getting noticed, and I got some great calls. I mean, I ended up in the studio with Al Jarreau. It's like, what? To me, he's one of the ultimate artists. But anyway, I ended up on The Tonight Show with Edgar Winter. So things like that happen in LA, Bob, because you're in LA, I have to say, at the right time, at the right place. And you get the calls and you do it. So let's just say that a few years later, it got the best of me, my drug use. And I started traveling with this jazz trio. And somehow I was still managing it. I ended up in Florida. I met Jocko. I went to a word of mouth show that he did, his band Word of Mouth. Mind-blowing, man. And he was one of my heroes. But I came back and landed in Las Vegas. So from a hot pot to the hottest spot.
Oh, man.
I ended up in Las Vegas and I was working a lot. I was making a lot of money. Back in those days, they had music 24/7 in Vegas. So I go from one gig to another gig. And, my disease got the best of me. And I hit the bottom, the worst bottom you can imagine. My sister came from California to talk me into getting into recovery. And I did. In 87, I got sober. September 20th of 87.
So coming up to 35 years next month.
Very good.
Amazing.
So that's when my life changed. I didn't play music for a good 9 months to a year. And then Bill Ward from Black Sabbath was going to the same meetings. We met in recovery.
Oh, wow.
That was my first gig. He says, Marco, I'm doing my first solo album. You're sober. I want to surround myself with sober players. I really am serious about getting my life in order. Long story short, I'm in the studio. I had to put some money together to go buy a bass because I didn't have a bass. He said, bring your bass. Maybe you'll play. It wasn't a set thing. And I brought the bass. He's telling me, well, this is Jack Bruce, and this is Tim Bogart, and this is Zach Wilde, and this is Ginger Baker. I'm like, okay. And he says, you want to give it a little play in this English way? You want to give a go? And I said, sure. So he started singing the bass parts. This is what I hear. And he would sing it, I would grab it. Sing it, grab it. So in this section, play this, 1 pass, 2 passes, it was done. And he went, oh, okay. Well, we have time. You want to do another? And I think I ended up playing on 4 or 5 tracks. But the point is that he's the reason why I started playing music again. And I will forever be indebted to him and grateful. And we kind of went our different directions now. And every chance I have, I send a message saying hello and respect and all that. But that was my first thing. So what that did is put me on the map.
Exactly. That's a huge confidence boost for you, because if you'd let's say, gone off the rails and hit rock bottom, tell me if I'm wrong, but I guess word can get around. Yeah, he's a great bass player, but is he reliable? He's a bit of a mess at the moment.
Well, it did. It did towards the end of 85, 86. It was really bad. And I understand why. People were just staying away, getting less calls, because I show up, or if I show up late, not doing any homework, and sometimes falling all over the stage and all that. It was bad, out of control.
What an opportunity for Bill Ward. I didn't realize it was through him getting sober as well. And
yeah,
it almost puts a stamp of approval. Well, Bill Ward's got him back on board.
Exactly.
He's turned things around. This is part 2.
Yes, because Bill Ward, come on, this is where the rock community, who is this cat? Who is that cat?
Yeah.
We shot a couple of videos, one that included Aussie. So that opened the doors even more. And the phone calls start coming in.
Did you get excited about you playing again?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I was really grateful for the opportunity. You kind of get introspective about things when you go through what I went through, when you lose it all, because it was taken away completely. And you get to appreciate it. You get to go back and go, wow, I was playing with Lionel Richie, trying to get that gig. And I was doing this and that. I was working with that producer. It's all gone. So what are you going to do different now? And that's what it was for me. It was like, okay, I'm going to be sober, first of all, maintain my sobriety, main priority. I'm going to get a good bass. I'm going to work, make some money, buy some good instrument and get into it. Then the next gig that I did was a rap gig for Dirty Dancing, the movie. That's way back. Remember?
Yeah.
Or are you too young?
No, I'm 1987. That was my year.
Yeah, it's 87. So I get a call for that after I kind of got noticed somewhere. And it was an all-star band, right? These are pickup gigs that you get. It was so cool that I was part of any clique. And that's when I realized I got to play, I got to sing, and I said, all right, from here on, I showed up on time. I did my homework. I did everything. I looked decent. I looked clean. I had a great time. I was smiling. Inside, I was shaking like a leaf because I had never played sober in my life.
Right, yeah.
And there was fear, but I got through it. And Marco, great work, man. And then next thing you know, I'm doing a lot of studio work, but also the fact that I was in LA was a big factor. I will say this, that I was there at the right time, at the right place when people knew about me and they said they were having issues with whatever, the music, or they needed some fretless, or they knew that I could call me and I could be there within the first hour, 2 hours.
Exactly.
And that's when the sessions began. It was cool. It was very, very, very cool, man.
I need to know, though, was Patrick Swayze at the rap party?
No.
Oh.
No, actually, maybe he was, but we did 2 sets. We did the dinner set, and me, in my own little world, I was scared, man. I was really scared. I was trying to make sure I knew the music's doing a good job. That was my main focus. I'm sure some of the cats were there.
Was you playing the stuff from the soundtrack, like the old 50s stuff?
We did 1 or 2 from, yeah, exactly. Right. I'm trying to remember. That's so long ago, bro. So that was my into the Hollywood scene. And I ended up doing a lot of recording with that team, you know. But that's mainly what happened. Then when the bigger jobs started coming in, there was always some downtime in between, always. If you think about it, it was the 89, 90, things were changing, starting to change. The digital world was coming in. People were using samples and all that. So I decided to put my project together where I could just have fun singing and playing. And this trio, we would play, and I picked a night. I found a venue that didn't have anything going on Tuesday nights. Because if you know LA is busy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then there was a jam down the street where all the rockers were having. So the only night that was kind of dark was Tuesday. So I'm thinking, okay, I went and talked to the owner of the club.
What club was it? Where'd you find?
Lavalley in Studio City.
Right.
Lavalley. Just like a mile and a half, 2 miles away from the Baked Potato. World famous with Baked Potato. So we started doing that with Sonny Paxson, who was the player there, who was working with Stanley Clarke. So Stanley would come in. It's just all this stuff, man. It's amazing how I start thinking about it. And then after that, I decided to do my thing. I talked to the managers. Yeah, do your thing. That's when the trio started. You see some videos now of the jazz trio that I play with. And that's the product of all those years. I mean, David Lee Roth came in to offer me a gig. David Coverdale came in. Ted Nugent came in. John Sykes.
Do you see him while you're playing in the audience? Like trying to focus?
Yeah, it's a tiny little club. And by then I was a little more confident. I was loving the place where I was at. And this place that all these people are coming in. We got a buzz going around town and people were looking for us. They were coming on Tuesdays. It was packed. We got shut down by the fire marshal because we had too many people. It was one of those things, right? Al Jarreau would come in. Stevie Wonder would come in. My keyboard player got recruited from there to play with Prince. Prince came in.
Oh, shit.
It was one of those gigs.
He came in. Was there like a glow coming from behind him as he entered the building?
He came in with a big old hoodie. You could barely see his eyes and 2 big bodyguards. And we knew he was coming in, so we got a corner table. And they came in. They brought him in through the kitchen, not the front, in the back. And nobody saw him. Nobody made a buzz. He was sitting in the corner. I knew he was there. We all knew he was there. And boom, my keyboard player gets recruited. Boom. Taken.
Wow.
Because Rhonda, his bass player, who's her friend, amazing bass player, and Sheila E. would come in and hang out. So that's her band, right? So it's one of those stories, man.
You mentioned David Lee Roth there. You'd also work on a bunch of tribute albums. One in particular I remember really digging was the 1999 Little Guitars tribute to Van Halen, produced by Bob Kulick.
Yes.
And you played on Unchained with Dweezil Zappa, Eric Singer, and Jack Russell.
Very good.
Do you remember much about that, or was it kind of like factory line stuff?
You know, it was always a pleasure to get a call from Bob. You know, I miss him. He was always a great guy. He got me into the clique. I call it clique because that's what it is. You show up in a city like LA, bro. I mean, you have Abraham Laboriel, you have Lee Sklar, you have Neil Steubenhaus, you have Nathan East. These guys are doing all the sessions, all of them. You come into a town like this, and because of the Fretless, call that guy, man, that plays at that little club, did that album with Bill, and he's now working with John Sykes with Blue Murder, and he's been touring with Ted Nugent, and I'm dropping names just to prove a point. And that's the call. But Bob was really cool like that. I got to do quite a few albums with him, actually. But unfortunately, I was doing a lot of sessions then, and I was traveling. I'd come home, and I'd be home for 2, maybe 3 months, and then I'm gone. Back in those days, you used to leave and be on the road for 6, 7, 8 months sometimes. So if I remember correctly, I did Van Halen, I did the Beatles, of course, I did Queen, I did a Kiss, and I did a Christmas album. So I did 5, maybe 6. I'm trying to remember. So these were all heavy projects. And the company that I was in, I'm like, wow, you know, I was one of the guys that would get the calls. And Billy Sheehan was the other one, Tony Franklin, Rudy Sarso.
Not a bad clientele of bass players.
So I came in, he checked me out, and I brought a fretted bass and my fretless. I always did that. And I plugged in the fretted and I started playing. He said, Marco, bro, I remember verbatim what he said. Marco, we want you to be Marco. That's your bass, not this. And I loved him for that. I really appreciated that. So from that point on, it was like, call me anytime, bro. I will drive. I will be here. And that was our relationship. Very cool cat.
You embarked on like this whole new chapter with one project leading to the next, a lot which you've mentioned, Blue Murder, Ted Nugent, Whitesnake, the list goes on and on. Do you approach each new project with the same blueprint? Have you always had a way you like to learn a new set, or has it become tough when you're so busy and there's little downtime between each one? What's your thing when someone's right, you need to learn these, 15 songs? What's your way of doing it?
To be honest, I absolutely love doing homework. For some reason,
right.
I don't know why. When I was a kid, I hated it. And with my kids, they hate doing homework. For some reason, I dig it, being one-on-one with the music and playing it and making some notes when I need to. But the goal is to forget about the notes. Most recently, Journey called. It was a last-minute thing. And Neil calls me and pretty much to help out fill in for Randy Jackson. So if you're familiar with their catalog, that keeps going and going and going and going. And he says, great. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Rehearsal starting in a few weeks. Learn everything you can. And it became chopping away. And the last thing I wanted to do is show up with notes. And the thing with Journey is that there's a lot of vocal parts. There's a lot of lyrics, a lot of major learning stuff. So I did the best I could. And the first show that we did at the Aragon in Chicago, you go into deep cuts, you go into the first album, the second album, into the big hits, and there's just not enough time in the set to play everything. So the reason I said that is like right now, I'm probably going to go to my room, grab my bass. The one-on-one time with the bass and the music that it's ahead of me, it's really interesting for me for some reason. It still is, which is good. So I get acquainted. I think my theory is if I learn this stuff, if I really learn it by heart, if I see the title and maybe I'll write the key, for some reason that works for me. I put the title and the key. It opens the memory cells to go, oh, that's right. It's that song. It's that key. The first chord, it's a power chord.
And you're away.
And then I'm gone. Exactly. I do that to this day. I save all these charts from all these projects. Yeah, man, it's interesting. Music is like that, right? I think you'll agree. It's always exciting, always opening some new doors. And the last thing I want to do is get too comfortable, you know. So you're constantly going. But with my solo thing, which is why we're doing this, the main focus is the singing and the songwriting and fronting my band, providing a good show with a good message. And I like to see people walk away with a smile on their face going, that was good.
I know that's important to you, that connection with the audience. That's always been a goal for you.
Very much so. Very much so. A long time ago, I learned when I was a kid, going to see shows and on TV and documentaries. The artists that really touched me and gave me a long-lasting impression were the artists that would break that wall between the audience and the artist and the performers, you know. Take it away. We're one. Let's have a good time together. And then it becomes more memorable as opposed to separation inspiration.
Do you have any secrets? If the crowd's a little bit quiet, do you have a way of bringing them up? Do you kind of try and connect with just one person in the audience and then hopefully it filters out?
I do. I talk about it. From time to time, you'll hear me. Sometimes I repeat myself. Not too much, I hope. I hate to be that guy that's got everything scripted. But listen, guys, we are here. We're going to have a good time, regardless. We love what we do. But we are here. We're not the party. You are the party. We're here to enable you have a good time. So it's up to you if you want to let go. Forget about your troubles. Come on, be happy. 2 hours, whatever. Let go. And then I'll go out with my wireless and just start dancing and moving around amongst them. Next thing you know, they're dancing and bopping, and you become them, they become you. And it's like, let's have a good time, guys. Come on. Music can't be that serious. Music should be appreciated and have fun. You need to have fun with it. After all the work's been done and everything, you came out, you bought the tickets, have a good time. And then I make sure I say thank you and meet and greets always. And people kind of criticize me for that. And I'm like, bro, they bought the ticket. Some people drove miles and miles away to come see you. The least you can do is appreciate, show them appreciation, you know. Take a picture, sign a few things. And I've signed quite a few things in my years.
Marco, it's been a pleasure again to speak to you.
Yes, sir. Peace, man.
Thanks so much once again to Marco Mendoza for returning to the show and always being a great guest with all his chilled energy, which I really enjoy. The new album, New Direction, is released on September the 16th, and all information with tour dates can be found over at marcomendoza.com. This and over 200 episodes of the podcast can be found at stvpod.com, along with some straight-to-video music, videos and merchandise. And as mentioned earlier, lots of things planned for the straight-to-video 80s video shop, which is getting such a lovely response from everyone who visits. So please check out and follow at 80s video shop all over social media, and fingers crossed you can visit soon. So that is all for today's show. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to sharing some more really fun chats over the coming weeks. So until then, look after yourselves and speak soon.